From the nation's capital, the Conservative Caucus presents Conservative Roundtable, an in-depth look at today's most important issues.
Welcome to Conservative Roundtable. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors this broadcast. We're pleased to have as our guest for this program my friend Jock Nash, who is the Washington counsel for Milliken and Company. I don't know anyone in America who is more knowledgeable on trade issues than Jock Nash. Jock is a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley and also of the Georgetown University Law School. He was administrative assistant to U.S. Senator Paul Laxalt, and he's been an advisor to the U.S. government on trade policy issues. Unfortunately, they haven't always taken his advice. Jock, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Howard.
And as we're taping this broadcast, more and more Americans are becoming aware of the fact that we have a massive trade deficit, and it's getting bigger every year. Some people say it's not a problem. What do you think?
It is. It's not even, these people are in denial. Our country is now consuming $2 billion more in imports than we're producing. $2 billion a day.
Wow.
It's a mind-boggling number. So we're consuming more than we're earning. We're importing more than we're producing. And now that's getting to the point where the trade deficit this year will be a little over $600 billion, leading to a current account deficit, which is the foreigners or foreign ability to control our wealth at a rate now that is aggregated to $3.3 trillion. Mind-boggling. America is losing 1% of its net worth to foreign ownership every year as a consequence.
I understand that in the past 4 years, America's trade deficit with communist China is in the neighborhood of, what, $400 billion?
Yes, well, this year it should hit somewhere around $165 billion.
For this single year?
This single year. And that's for 2004. We'll get those numbers in about 2 or 3 weeks. But it's a mind-boggling number.
Of course, that has profound implications for American industry, American workers, and also for communist China, because the advantage they gain in trade yields them resources which they can use for military buildup, they can use for other things. If you were king of the world, how would you change U.S. policy vis-a-vis communist China insofar as trade and economic issues are concerned?
All of our trade should be mutually beneficial and reciprocal. Even Adam Smith said, you don't trade with somebody who doesn't trade with you. This extraordinary imbalance that we have with the People's Republic of China will cost us dearly, and there will be a reckoning. If there's one thing in a country that you have exports and you have imports. No country can control its exports. That's up to the recipient country, the buying country, the consuming country. The only thing that you can control are imports. So, we have to basically tell China that we're going to balance our accounts. We can't afford to have this trade imbalance with you, and however way you do it, with tariff rate quotas, or whether you do it with tariffs, or it simply must be balanced. The imbalance is hurting America each and every day.
Of course, both major political parties favored the entrance of the United States into the World Trade Organization and the entrance of Red China into the World Trade Organization. Don't the rules of WTO say that we can't impose high tariffs on communist China?
The WTO prohibits the United States from doing anything unilaterally relative to trade. So we're basically forbidden by the rules and the regulations of the WTO from doing what's in our national self-interest. China, each and every day, is doing what's in its national self-interest. We're just not doing what's in ours.
And of course, the Constitution says Congress shall regulate commerce with foreign nations. It doesn't authorize Congress to turn that power over to an international bureaucracy. So I think it would be perfectly appropriate for members of Congress to say, WTO be damned, we're going to vote to defend our country. Of course, it's not a good sign that Robert Zoellick, one of the leading promoters of trade that favors other countries rather than the United States, is now the deputy, or will soon be the Deputy Secretary of State under Condoleezza Rice. But one bit of news that I find encouraging is that two senators, one Democrat, one Republican, have proposed imposing a tariff on communist China. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina has proposed a tariff, Republican, and Charles Schumer of New York, Democrat, has proposed a tariff. I think in Schumer's case it was 27.5% or some such.
That's correct.
And what was the amount that Graham proposed?
Well, he went along with the 27.5, but you see there are many imbalances. The Chinese currency is pegged to the U.S. dollar, but it's pegged at a devalued rate. So they basically have a 40% advantage when they ship something to us, or if we try to sell something to them.
Explain how that works, if you would.
Well, it's the Chinese in 1994 devalued their currency by 40%, and then pegged
this is the yuan or the
renminbi or the renminbi. Then at that time they pegged it to the U.S. dollar. So no matter what, they couldn't get an advantage over us. Normally in economics, if some country runs an extraordinary surplus with another country, and a country builds up a current account deficit like we have, normally our currency would fall in value, and in order to balance the books. But the Chinese renminbi falls at the same rate as the dollar because they've pegged it. Now, what the 27.5% that Senator Schumer and Senator Lindsey Graham are going to put on China is what some economists say is that the differential, the delta between what the Chinese currency is and what it should be.
That lowballs it.
They lowballed it a great deal. It's not a solution to the problem. There are so many problems in our trade account and our trade relationship with China that it'll take a heck of a lot more than that to solve the problem.
Now, isn't it true that the Chinese government, or the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the People's Republic of China, owns a good deal of our debt, that they have bought bonds, and if they ever called that debt, we could be in a lot of trouble?
Right now, I mentioned earlier that we're consuming $2 billion a day more than we're producing. The only way you can do that is someone loans you the money to buy what you can't afford. And so what's happening now is that the National Bank of China and the National Bank of Japan are loaning us money to buy the things that we can't afford.
Now, you observed that the Chinese communists are acting in their own self-interest. Conversely, America is not defending our self-interest. And that's true of a government which sends money to communist China through the United Nations, through the World Bank, International Monetary Fund. It's certainly very true that business in America grovels for a place at the table in communist China. And I remember being in Red China a couple of years ago and visiting the General Motors plant, I believe in Shanghai. And I asked the people running the plant whether it was a profitable operation, and they said, no, this is an investment in the future. We don't expect to make much money short term, but we're buying goodwill. And then I asked to take a look at their annual report, and the annual report didn't have many numbers in it, but had a big picture of the head of General Motors China with the then leader of Communist China, Jiang Zemin. And they have something called the Guangxi, which is economics based on relationships. The numbers don't matter. It's who you know. We're going to have to take a break here, Jock, and we'll be back right after these messages. I'm Howard Phillips, and our guest for this broadcast is trade expert Jock Nash. One of the top leaders in the Communist Chinese military declared that the United States is the main enemy of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the People's Republic of China, which is longhand for what we call China. We have been building up our enemy, if that is a reciprocal term, by giving them most favored nation status and membership in the World Trade Organization. Last year alone, that gave them an $84 billion advantage in money which is fungible. And as a result of the extra money they have, they're not only taking jobs from the United States, they're increasing their military budget by 17% a year. It's time to stop sending technology and dollars to Communist China.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org or 703-938-9626.
Face the Truth is a production of the Conservative Caucus and is seen twice monthly on the station you are watching. We will be interviewing the movers and shakers of the pro-life movement. We hope to educate and even inspire you about what is being done in our country to protect and to promote the sanctity of life. Please watch us.
Don't miss Face the Truth with Stephen Peruka and Conservative Roundtable with Howard Phillips right here on this station every week.
Here's how you can become a citizen lobbyist and influence how your representatives vote. Write a letter to your congressmen and senators. Speak out on a call-in talk radio program. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper and call the Conservative Caucus for more information at 703-938-9626.
Help the Arbor Day Foundation plant more trees across the nation. Plant a tree today for all the world to share.
Go to arborday.org.
Being alive today has special meaning for both of us. There have been times when I almost didn't make it. But the one time I had the most to lose was before I was even born. My mom was young, single, no money. I'm sure it wasn't easy for her to give me a chance. But today, I know she'd be very proud that her decision saved more than one life.
Come on, you're going to tell me that buying one imported towel is going to cost someone their job?
Ever tried shopping for clothes with a 4-year-old? I can't be looking for where the stuff is made.
Since 1980, nearly 500,000 Americans who make apparel and home fashions have lost their jobs, even though the quality of our products is second to none, which makes you wonder if it's foreign competition that's hurting us.
So the shirt's imported. Who's it gonna hurt?
Or if it's us that's hurting us. Buy American, and Americans work.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips with trade expert Jock Nash. Jock, just before the break, we were talking about business patriotism being an oxymoron. It no longer exists. Businesses are so eager to enter the Chinese market that for short-term gains, the American people are going to suffer long-term losses. And you've pointed out that it's impossible to purchase a wide range of top products that are made in the United States. Some of them are almost exclusively made in Communist China. What's been going on?
Business, corporate America, even that's not an oxymoron. Right. Business looks at China with its 1.3 billion people not as a market. They look at China as 1.3 billion workers. They can move to China, not worry about the environment, not worry about labor laws, pay pennies an hour wages, and they will move lock, stock, and barrel, move out of the United States, move to China, make the goods that each and every one of us buy every day, and take the means of production, move it to China, and sell it at a profit so that the CEOs can lower their costs. And after 3 years of being a CEO, he'll get his final compensation, and he'll be clipping coupons in the Hamptons when America is running out of jobs.
Just during the Bush administration, since President Bush took office in 2001, 2.7 million manufacturing jobs in America have disappeared, and more are being lost. If for no other reason than national security, we ought to be worried about the restoration, let alone the preservation, of our manufacturing base. We don't have a steel industry anymore. There are many things we don't have that we need to be capable of self-defense in times of conflict when our homeland is really at risk. In my opinion, the war in Iraq is an expensive distraction, unrelated to the proximate vital interests of the United States of America. But the time will come when our homeland and our population are in fact at risk, and our ability to defend ourselves economically and militarily will be much diminished as a result of our trade policies, our foreign policies, our participation in the World Trade Organization, the NAFTA agreement, and so forth. The problem, as you have articulately pointed out, is that the American people have little knowledge of history, and they're very present-oriented. Present consumption takes priority over long-term concerns. It's like the Aesop's fable about those who...
The grasshopper and the ant.
The grasshopper and the ant, those who sacrifice the future for the sake of the present. Consumption has become a big deal, hasn't it?
You know, we are now consumption mad in this country. Our savings rate is the lowest it's been in our nation's history, except for during the depth of the Depression. The average family of four has got $18,000 to $20,000 of credit card debt. We've got mortgage debt. We've got national debt. We've got foreign debt. We are consumption mad. And one day this country is going to wake up and find out that great countries are made great not by what they consume, but by what they produce. We have corporations with suspect national loyalties moving offshore. We're still buying the same things that we always bought. We're buying the same refrigerators, oftentimes from the same company, the shoes from the same company.
Or at least the label on the product is the same.
That's right, absolutely the same brand, except those aren't made here. They're made in China. And, you know, China is creating 1 million jobs a month, and they'll have to do that forever, in perpetuity, in order to get social stability. And that government wants to keep stability, I can assure you. And they'll do everything, and they are doing everything. They are subsidizing illegally under the WTO all their corporations. They are giving out...
Even their military is profiting from manufacturing concerns.
Yeah.
The military owns many of their companies.
About half of the manufacturing, half of the businesses in China are state-owned enterprises. Most of those are owned by the Red Army. They started that a generation ago, and that was the way the Army paid for itself. And you know, so it's an extraordinary system. And it is trumping and eclipsing this so-called free market economy of the United States by far.
Let's talk about what happens to us. As a result of this trade deficit, as a result of our fiscal deficit, as a result of the fact that foreign governments own a great deal of our debt, if they pull the plug, we're in trouble. But we're also in trouble if they stop buying that debt. And because the strength of the dollar has declined as a result of our profligate policies, many of them are now saying we no longer want to deal in dollars. We're going to look at euros. We're going to look at other currencies rather than the dollar. At some point, that means the dollar goes boom, and interest rates fly up in this country in an effort to forestall that, and the value of everything we own will be much diminished. We have about a minute left. Tell us about that.
Well, it's extraordinary when, because we are now over $3.5 trillion in debt to foreign interests, those foreign interests might not want to loan us any more money to buy things we can't afford. And so in order to cover the risk, we're going to have to raise interest rates. Greenspan, the Federal Reserve Chairman, wants to raise interest rates about 2% this year. He might have to double or triple that. Just think what that happens on your credit card debt, your variable interest rate mortgage. We'll find tens of millions of people that will start losing their houses, losing their jobs. It is a death spiral, and it was all caused because we've been grasshoppers and we are not independent anymore as a nation. We are dependent on foreigners to loan us money.
Jock, stay with us, and you stay with us too. We'll be back right after these messages with a final word from our special guest, Attorney Jock Nash.
When you see the terrible decline in public morality, do you have a suspicion that something's gone wrong in America? Would you like to make a positive difference for freedom and for liberty? Institute on the Constitution is a historical study designed to teach you about the basic core ideas behind the Constitution, the ideas that built America. Call the number on the screen and learn more.
The Institute on the Constitution, 410-768-2280, www.instituteontheconstitution.com.
There are many conservative organizations, but the Conservative Caucus is unique in that our standard for evaluating public policy is the Constitution of the United States. Our goal is to advocate policies which conform to what the Constitution stipulates and to oppose those which undermine the Constitution. It's clear that the federal government has only those powers which are provided in the Constitution, which were initially delegated by the states to the federal government or which were subsequently added by amendment. If we adhered to that principle, your taxes would be lower and your liberties would be more secure.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org or 703-938-9626.
More than the entire population of Cincinnati. More than all the men and women in the Marine Corps. More than 4 times the number of unemployed auto workers. Since 1980, over 500,000 Americans who make clothing and home fashions have lost their jobs because we don't realize the impact of buying imported goods. So if you think looking for the Made in the USA label doesn't matter,
Next!
It matters.
I come from Ukraine. For 52 years, I'm in the United States. For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth. This country, if you put your mind in anything, you will succeed. We are free. We can travel. We can go any place. We can, whatever we want. Freedom to me means my life.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips, Chairman of the Conservative Caucus. If you're interested in the kinds of issues we discuss on Conservative Roundtable, I hope you'll check out our website, www.conservativeusa.org, or drop us a line at 450 Maple, M-A-P-L-E, Avenue East, and that's in Vienna, Virginia, 22180. And if you're interested in learning more about the things that Jock Nash knows and so well articulates, you can reach him, care of Milliken and Company, at the address which appears on the screen. Jock, we just have a couple of minutes left, and let me just say I wish every member of the House and Senate could sit down and have a conversation with you about trade issues. That doesn't necessarily mean you would change their minds, but they would at least have reason to feel guilty for what they're doing. If, to go back to what I asked at the beginning, and to quote Mr. Lennon, what is to be done?
The American people are the ones that are at fault. You mentioned earlier that the Constitution gives the power to regulate international commerce to that branch of government closest to the people, the Congress. The Congress now gave their constitutional prerogative to the President. They call that trade promotion authority. And he is the one, the executive branch is the one that has opened up our markets, and Congress has been there, his willing handmaiden. America, you know, the Constitution guarantees us representative government, not good government. I just wish the American people would go out there and vote for their folks, and so that the only protected job in the United States anymore is an incumbent politician. That's
13 of 435.
And that's our
lost
fault.
Their seats.
We need to keep flushing until the water's clean.
And we need to study history. As Santayana said, he who forgets the past is condemned to repeat it. We can't even say the American people have forgotten the past. Most of them have never known it. Jock, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure, Howard.
God bless you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us on Conservative Roundtable.